Hey there, it's Dina from idon'tgetittutoring.com. Today we're going to be doing multiplying binomials. When you see it on the paper, it seems a little much, right? A lot of numbers, kind of complicated, but I can assure you it's something you already know how to do, and it's much easier than it seems. Let's get started. So first we're going to review what a binomial is. Binomial with the beginning bi means two terms. So when we're multiplying binomials, we're multiplying two terms by another two terms. Well, something we already know how to do is multiply a monomial by a binomial. And what's a monomial? That's one term. So we know how to multiply one term by two terms. So, for example, we know how to do 2 times 3x plus 1. That's easy. With the distributive property, shouldn't be a problem. 2 is our monomial in this case, and 3x plus 1 is our binomial in this case. And then once again, with the distributive property, we can do 2 times 3x and 2 plus 2 times 1. And then from there, 2 times 3x is 6x plus 2 times 1, which is 2. This is our final answer. Easy enough, right? So all we're doing is adding an extra term. So let's start with 6x plus 2 times 5x plus 3. Okay, I know, a little daunting at first, but the same exact method. Before, instead of multiplying one number, now we have 2. So what we're doing is we're taking this whole expression and we're multiplying it by this term and by this term. So we're distributing it twice to the two terms in the other binomial. So the first time we're going to multiply it by 5x, and then the second time we're going to multiply it by 3, and then we're going to add both of them together. So let's start. 5x times 6x plus 2 plus 3 times 6x plus 2. So we took the same 6x plus 2 and we took this term and we distributed. And then from there, it's super easy. Just like when we were multiplying with our monomial, we have two of them now. Our monomials and our binomial. And then from there, all we have to do is distribute once again and simplify. So 5x times 6x plus 5x times 2 plus 3 times 6x plus 3 times 2. And then solve. So 5x times 6x is 30x squared plus 5x times 2, which is 10x, plus 3 times 6x, which is 18x, plus 3 times 2, which is 6. Simplify by adding like terms. 30x squared stays the same. 10x plus 18x is 28x plus 6. There we go. That is our final answer. 6x plus 2 times 5x plus 3 equals 30x squared plus 28x plus 6. And just one thing to note, two binomials, when you multiply two binomials, so binomial times binomial equals a trinomial. Because as you see here, we have three terms. So this is now a trinomial. And as illustrated here, and here, a monomial times a binomial equals a binomial. Okay? So not super significant, but something that might be helpful later on in different instances. So with this method, we use the distributive property. But I have one more method we could use to multiply two binomials. I find the distributive property easier and a little more practical, but our second way also works and is also perfectly fine as well. Let's get into it. Now, here we are going to use something that's like a Punnett square that you would use in biology. If you don't know what a Punnett square is, that's totally okay. Doesn't really matter in this instance. So let's use those same pairs that we used earlier. 6x plus 2 times 5x plus 3. Now what we're doing is we're taking these pairs and we're putting them into this box. So this pair is going to go to the top. So we're going to do 6x plus 2. And then we're going to take the other pair, 5x plus 3, and we're going to put it right on the other side of the square, 5x plus 3. Now, what color? Now, all we have to do is multiply. And what color do red and blue make? Purple. So that's the color I'm going to use to fill in the square now. So basically what we're doing is we're taking 6x over here, 5x over here, and we're multiplying them together, and we're creating a number. And then the same thing here. 2 times 5x is 10x. Now, I'm not going to keep drawing a bunch of circles because I think it's going to get a little messy. So I'm going to erase those circles that I drew. But you get the concept now. We're basically taking the number in each column or in each row and carrying it throughout that column or row. So 6x times 3 is 18x. And 2 times 3 is 6. And then there, we take them out and we add them. So it's 30x squared plus 10x plus 18x plus 6. Now, let's note, here we got lucky because we have two addition signs. So if we were to drag the sign down, it would be plus 10x plus 18x plus 6. The reason why I do that, obviously any positive number, you're not going to write the plus sign in front of it. But what if we had a negative number and we were multiplying by a negative? So let's say instead of 6x plus 2, it was 6x minus 2. We would have to remember to multiply the negative because that's important in our final answer. If we don't multiply negative and we forget the negative sign, then our answer is going to be different than the correct answer. So that's why I like to bring the sign with it. So let's say if it was negative, you would know it's negative 10x, negative 6, and so on. And then instead of adding them in the final expression, it would look something a little bit like minus 10x plus 18x minus 6. So you would take that sign and carry it. You would not subtract the negative, because subtracting a negative is essentially a positive. And you don't want to do that because then that's adding. So just to keep that in mind, that's not what we're doing in this example. But just something, once again, to keep in mind, very useful tip. Now, what we have here, 30x squared plus 10x plus 18x plus 6 can be simplified by combining like terms. So 30x squared plus 28x plus 6 is our final answer. And how does this compare with what we wrote earlier? It's the exact same. So once again, either method is fine. Either method works. They give you the same exact answer. So it's honestly just up to you, your personal preference, or what your teacher prefers you use. Both ways are, once again, perfectly fine. And it's very important that you don't forget to simplify when you're using the square. I call it the Punnett square, because every time you multiply two binomials, you need to leave it in something called standard form. Now, you might be familiar with ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, this right here is standard form. When you simplify, this is the most it can be simplified. Standard form. Now this means that you put it in a way where the highest power of x is in the front, and then the powers of x with each term go down by 1. So ax squared plus bx plus c, right? Ax squared has x to the power of 2 plus bx, x is now to the power of 1, but you don't usually write the 1. It's kind of invisible, but it's there. And that's c times x to the 0, because anything to the power of 0 is 1. And c times 1 is c. So this is one example of standard form. But also, another way to put something in standard form is ax to the third plus bx to the second plus cx plus d. And so on. You could also have like zx to the fourth plus hx to the fifth, and so on. You could have an endless amount of terms, but it's always important to have only one of each x power, because if you have two x squares, and that means you can consolidate them and simplify it even more. So until you have only one of each, your expression isn't entirely simplified. Just something to keep in mind, something very, very important. Now, let's do one practice problem. We went over the two methods. I will give you a binomial, and you can pause the video, try to do it yourself, and then we will go over it together. So let's try to do 5 minus x squared times x minus 5. Feel free to pause the video to try it on your own, and we will go over it now. Let's get into it. This time I'm going to use the distributive property. Let's take 5 minus x squared and distribute it to x and negative 5. Don't forget the negative. So we have x times 5 minus x squared minus 5 times 5 minus x squared. And then from here, 5 times x minus x times x squared minus 5 times 5 minus 5 times negative x squared. So we have 5x. This is a multiplication sign, by the way. The dots, don't confuse them for little minuses. Minus x times x squared is x to the third minus 25 minus 5 times negative x squared is negative 5x squared. And minus a negative is essentially a positive. So we have 5x minus x to the third minus 25 plus 5x squared. And then from here, all we have to do is simplify. We have to put our like terms together to put this into simplest form. And by the looks of it, there's actually one of each. So all we have to do is order it now. We have to order it from the power of x that is greatest to least. So first, x to the third, then plus 5x squared. Next we have x to the first, so x plus 5x. And then at the end, minus 25. Now, I made one mistake. I left one thing out in this final expression. Can you spot what that is? Something very important I had mentioned before, not to miss. Did you find it? It's the negative sign in front of x to the third. It's a common mistake a lot of students make. Do you see here in the expression how there is a minus sign? You always bring the sign in front of the number with it. So you can never forget to bring the minus sign down. So our final expression is negative x to the third plus 5x squared plus 5x minus 25. That concludes multiplying binomials. In this video, we talked about multiplying them through the distributive property and through a multiplication square, which I call the Punnett square, and finding the resultant trinomial in standard form. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.